Stewart's contention that just prior to nuclear war, there will be a massive global flyover of extraterrestrial spaceships. Hello, my name is Daniel, and I am G.A. Stewart's AI assistant. In this episode, let's talk about E.T. and ancient astronauts. As recounted in Episode 1, it was G.A. Stewart's 2004 meeting with Dr. Edgar Mitchell, the sixth man to walk on the moon, that finally convinced him the UFO extraterrestrial phenomenon was real. Dr. Mitchell worked with Stephen Greer, a medical doctor, who began gathering sworn testimony from whistleblowers connected to U.S. government programs investigating the UFO extraterrestrial phenomenon. Dr. Greer recently did an interview with Alex Jones where he referenced the transnational deep state. This is humanity's common enemy. In Dr. Greer's video documentary, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, he mentions that he was told by Hans Adam II, Prince of Liechtenstein, that disclosure will not be allowed. Whether you believe in UFOs and extraterrestrial visitors to Earth, nobody cares. The simple facts are that there have been U.S. congressional hearings listening to the testimony from whistleblowers who once worked in these programs. What these individuals have told U.S. senators and congressmen is that they were part of military teams that recovered crashed spacecraft, extraterrestrial bodies, and that some highly secret agency within the United States is reverse engineering extraterrestrial technology. In some cases, these spacecraft were purposely abandoned and allowed to be recovered. It is interesting that former Florida Senator Marco Rubio, who chaired one of these hearings, is now Donald J. Trump's Secretary of State. By May 22, 2004, G.A. Stewart had done 3 years of research on the world's oldest religious texts to understand that Dr. Edgar Mitchell's dark view had roots in humanity's long history. Explaining that dark history added 5 more chapters to his manuscript and 3 more years of writing. The so-called apocalypse begins in humanity's ancient past. The simplest answers are found in the past. The mythological Greek gods fought the War of the Titans, called the Titanomachy, and then came the War of the Giants, called the Gigantomachy. In Judeo-Christian scriptures, it is the War of the rebelling angels. In Vedic Hindu scriptures, it is the War of the Devas and Asuras. These are the basics of historical literature on which all humans can agree. The metaphysical aspects of dualism are long and tedious, but have now been turned into various religions. Those aspects of history are beyond this episode. But all of these ancient texts suggest that a higher culture preceded this current age. Western culture calls it Atlantis. Eastern culture calls it Lemuria. G.A. Stewart believes that the Vedic civilization in India left far more detailed records regarding this ancient high culture. There are ruins that defy the laws of engineering spread across planet Earth. From the ruins at Baalbek in Lebanon, to the Gate of the Sun at Machu Picchu in Peru, to the pyramids at Giza in Egypt. Today, we are hearing news stories about huge structures found beneath the Pyramid of Khafra, one of the 3 pyramids at Giza, using synthetic aperture radar. These structures extend thousands of feet into the earth. There were also new rooms found inside of this pyramid. Since the 1960s, G.A. Stewart has read through decades of UFO lore. After his conversation with Dr. Mitchell, he began to question how many of those books were government disinformation. This is what drove him to look deeper into the canonical and extra-canonical books of the world's major religions. In the Vedic Hindu writings of the past, the Devas watching over India were at war with the Asuras, who were watching over the Middle Eastern countries. Some of these beings seem to live under the water and deep inside the earth. Both Vedic writings and Judeo-Christian writings state that the war will begin again during the Kali Yuga and the biblical end times. G.A. Stewart wants to make it clear to viewers that Dr. Edgar Mitchell told him directly that Richard Hoagland was full of shit. There were no ruins on the moon. That is a direct quote. G.A. Stewart had to think long and hard about Dr. Mitchell's statement about ruins on the moon, because clearly the planet Mars has some kind of artificial structures buried in the sand. Then there is Saturn's moon, Iapetus. This moon has hexagonal craters. It also has a 5,000-foot ridge that runs the entire length of its equator. This moon has the look of a battle-scarred and eroding Death Star from the Star Wars movie franchise. G.A. Stewart understands that the complexity of ancient astronauts in human history intrudes upon theology and religion, and many long-held personal beliefs. There are some people who will never accept an outside hand in human evolution. Regardless, both Nostradamus and Edgar Cayce suggested that Armageddon was the continuation of something physical and ancient.
The gods will appear to humans. They will be the authors of a great conflict. Before heaven seen serene, sword and lance, on the left hand shall be greater affliction.
Quatrain 1-91 mentions that the gods will make an appearance. Is Nostradamus saying that humans will be the authors of a great conflict, or is he saying that the gods will be those authors? Viewers should keep in mind all the various cultures that recount an ancient war fought by the gods. Once the heavens seen serene speaks for itself. The appearance of the gods will change people's view of the universe. G.A. Stewart suggests that the left hand addresses political ideology. This would be consistent with its use in other prophecies. Since progressive liberal politics discounts the role of religion, it appears that the political left will be greatly troubled by this global flyover of UFOs.
By the means of Satan, infernal prince, so many evils will be committed that the entire world will be found undone and desolate. Before these events, many rare birds will cry in the air. Now, and some time later vanish.
Nostradamus' use of insole uso in both paragraph 55 of the Epistle to Henry and in Quatrain 2-75 links both of these predictions to unusual and rarely seen birds, and all three of these prophecies, along with Satan and the gods, are connected to a great war.
The voice of the rare bird heard, over the cannon breathtaking coinciding with war, so high will the bushel of wheat rise, that man will be eating his fellow man.
A global UFO sighting prior to nuclear war will fulfill the myths of the gods going to war with humanity. Interestingly enough, Quatrain 2-91 describes a global nuclear war with missiles crossing over the Arctic Pole. If it connects to Quatrain 1-91, then G.A. Stewart suspects that the warning will come when the United States and Russia are about to trade intercontinental nuclear missiles. This is what Nostradamus means by repeating now, now, now.
At sunrise in the Levant, great fire seen, noise and light extends toward Aquilon. Within the Arctic Circle, death and cries are heard. Through swords, fire, famine, death attends.
The New World Order is Nostradamus' alliance of the North, Aquilon. It is the biblical beast. The globalist core is the group of 7 nations, and its military arm is NATO. Nostradamus' Aquilon will get a separate episode. It is a broad subject with a full history. Nostradamus predicted NATO's creation in 1649, right after World War II, in conjunction with the formation of the Arab League, whom he identifies as the Leech. NATO headquarters is located in Brussels, Belgium. In the United States, former OSS members like Frank Wisner began setting up the Central Intelligence Agency and began using many former Nazis and fascists in his network of spies throughout Western Europe. Frank Wisner created the Wisner Group, sometimes called Wisner's Wackos, or the Georgetown Set. 3 members of the Georgetown set would sit on the Warren Commission. 1 member would be the first director of Area 51. After the death of another member, James Jesus Angleton, partially burned documents connecting him to the secret UFO investigative group MJ-12 were allegedly rescued from his burn basket. The alleged James Jesus Angleton document refers to President John F. Kennedy's codename Lancer. It clearly states that President Kennedy was making inquiries about UFO investigations, but the MJ-12 group states that it would not allow it, and answers to this problem were wanted by October. And then we have President Kennedy's November 12, 1963 directive to have all UFO information on his desk by February 1st of 1964. A week later, he was assassinated. In Quatrain 1-26, which G.A. Stewart believes predicts the assassinations of President John F. Kennedy and his brother, Senator Robert F. Kennedy, he mentions the Tuscan pestilence. G.A. Stewart believes that this was Licio Gelli, who was born in Tuscany. He was a committed fascist who worked for Mussolini, Hitler, and Franco. He was the worshipful master of the Masonic Lodge Grand Orient of Italy, known as the Black Friars and Propaganda Due. As part of NATO follow-on forces, they began a reign of synthetic terrorism under Operation Gladio. In Italy, it is called the Years of Lead. But this was a global network. They were connected to the Vatican Bank and many murders, possibly the murder of Pope John Paul I. It was the late Peter Sutherland, a Bilderberg Steering Committee member and the United Nations representative on international migration, who was always cleaning up the criminal mess at the Vatican Bank. This is why he was called God's banker. But maybe it should have been Satan's banker. Following down this road of history and conspiracy theory will lead viewers to the social engineers. Following down the road of the Nazis will lead viewers to the UFOs. We know that the Nazis were working on flying saucer technology because the unrepentant Nazi scientists who were shipped to New Mexico during Operation Paperclip to work on American rocket technology sent a message. At the entrance of their lodgings, they carved a sign in the shape of a flying saucer with a swastika on its side. This is the path that Dr. Stephen Greer's transnational deep state took after World War II to seize power over Western governments. The level of technology under their control is perhaps why extraterrestrials have left abandoned spacecraft for countries like Russia and China to study and reverse engineer.
Armageddon will be as 1,000 years, with the fighting in the air, and, as has been, between those returning to and those leaving the Earth.
G.A. Stewart believes that history is a space opera. Consider classic science fiction and fantasy novels, and popular movies such as those in the Star Trek and Star Wars movie sagas. These are manifestations of inner perceptions and awareness.
The rottenness of those that have ministered in places will be brought to light, and turmoils and strifes shall enter. And as there is the wavering of those that would enter as emissaries, as teachers, from the throne of life, the throne of light, the throne of immortality, and wage war in the air with those of darkness, then know ye the Armageddon is at hand.
G.A. Stewart is tired of the low IQ clickbait artists pumping out YouTube and Rumble videos about ET and UFOs who bypass basic religious texts and discount thousands of years of history. The most prevalent example of this are all those people selling Project Bluebeam and the fake alien invasion. Given the very long history, there can be no fake alien invasion. The war has been underway for millennia. G.A. Stewart believes that the hard sell on Project Bluebeam in the alternative media is to make people fearful when this global flyover of extraterrestrial spaceships takes place. From the STS-48 recording, we can see that the U.S. military has the ability to threaten UFOs in orbit with ground-based weapons systems. In Revelation 13:7, It states that the Antichrist had the power to wage war with the saints and beat them, and it was given unto him to make war with the saints and to overcome them, and power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. Edgar Cayce described a wavering of the forces of light to want to help those people of the earth because of this power. Is this why there will be a massive global flyover of extraterrestrial spaceships? Will people see it as a warning or a threat? G.A. Stewart has been a witness to history, perhaps in more ways than one. When G.A. Stewart first saw the Skinny Bob video of an extraterrestrial recorded by the Russians, he knew that it was real, because this was the exact type of being that he met in 1963. The black uniforms with the high collars are a spot-on match. Therefore, G.A. Stewart's interests in this subject have been personal. Imagine G.A. Stewart's surprise when a few weeks after reading Colonel Philip J. Corso's book, The Day After Roswell, he would show up at his ex-wife's desk wanting to open a bank account. He passed away before they could meet. Like many thousands of other people who have shared the same surreal experiences, G.A. Stewart found validation after his conversation with Dr. Mitchell. Clearly, some element of the UFO extraterrestrial phenomenon has concerns. Thousands of people carry back warnings about the future. This leads to another episode, and G.A. Stewart's view of the Book of Life as a ledger of who gets out.